Introduction: the unspoken weight husbands carry. There is a unique hardship that many husbands experience, one that often goes unnamed. It's the weight of responsibility, the pressure to lead, the expectation to grow, the call to sacrifice, sometimes without acknowledgement. And over time, that pressure can start to feel unfair. Not because marriage is broken, not because God is unjust, but because the responsibility placed on a husband is often uneven, unseen, and unshared. Yet Scripture does not shy away from this reality. In fact, the Bible addresses it directly, not to excuse quitting, but to explain purpose. Why it feels unfair. It feels unfair because husbands are often called to lead even when they didn't cause the problem, change even when they're already trying, respond with patience instead of reaction, love sacrificially even when appreciation feels minimal. This sense of unfairness grows stronger when comparison enters the picture. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to change first? Why doesn't she have to carry this weight? Why does it seem like she's getting away with it? Those questions are real, but they are also revealing. They show us that the frustration is not always about injustice, it's about perspective. The unspoken weight husbands carry. There is a unique hardship that many husbands experience, one that often goes unnamed. It's the weight of responsibility, the pressure to lead, the expectation to grow, the call to sacrifice, sometimes without acknowledgement. And over time, that pressure can start to feel unfair, not because marriage is broken, not because God is unjust, but because the responsibility placed on a husband is often uneven, unseen, and unshared. Yet Scripture does not shy away from this reality. In fact, the Bible addresses it directly, not to excuse quitting, but to explain purpose. Ephesians 5:25 ESV directs husbands to love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This command explains why the responsibility a husband carries often feels heavier than it looks, why it feels unfair. It feels unfair because husbands are often called to lead even when they didn't cause the problem, change even when they're already trying, respond with patience instead of reaction, love sacrificially even when appreciation feels minimal. This sense of unfairness grows stronger when comparison enters the picture. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to change first? Why doesn't she have to carry this weight? Why does it seem like she's getting away with it? Those questions are real, but they are also revealing. They show us that the frustration is not always about injustice. It's about perspective. The shift. It's not unfair. It's formative. The hardship itself is not unfair by nature. It becomes unfair when we label it that way. From God's perspective, what feels unfair is often intentional formation. Scripture speaks directly to this in James 1:2-4, where believers are taught to understand trials not as meaningless suffering, but as a process God uses to produce endurance, maturity, and completeness. The emphasis is not on enjoyment, comfort, or fairness, but on what the trial is producing. This is why hardship should not be viewed as punishment, but as training. God allows certain pressures not to break a man, but to build him, especially men he intends to entrust with leadership. Growth is rarely equal because formation is personal. Two people can be in the same marriage and be in very different classrooms spiritually. Why comparison destroys the lesson? Comparison shifts the question from, what is God forming in me? To, why am I carrying more than someone else? And the moment comparison takes over, purpose gets blurred, resentment grows, humility erodes, and the lesson gets missed. Scripture warns against this mindset. Let each one test his own work, for each will have to bear his own load. Galatians 6:4 and 5, ESV. God is not forming you based on someone else's assignment. He is forming you based on yours. The danger of calling it unfair. Here's the critical truth. When a man decides a season is unfair and quits, he doesn't escape the lesson. He delays it. Growth requires engagement, not avoidance. James makes this clear. Count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. James 1:2-3 ESV. Trials don't produce growth automatically. They produce growth when endured faithfully. Quitting may relieve pressure temporarily, but it forfeits formation. Why marriage is the classroom? Marriage is one of God's primary tools for shaping a man because it exposes pride, requires restraint, demands responsibility, and tests obedience. Not because marriage is flawed, but because it is designed to refine. Scripture addresses this refining work directly. In Colossians 3, verse 19, husbands are commanded to love their wives and warned against becoming harsh or bitter toward them. That warning assumes pressure and calls husbands to grow in restraint rather than react in frustration. This calling is not based on fairness, it is based on faithfulness. Marriage refines a man by revealing what surfaces in him under pressure and calling him to maturity instead of bitterness. The mission mindset shift. A man on mission learns to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "What is God forming in me through this?" That shift changes everything, because Scripture promises, "And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." James 1:4 ESV. What feels unfair is often the very thing God is using to make a man more grounded, more patient, more discerning, more dependable. The central truth. It feels unfair because we compare, but it isn't pointless because God is forming us. Or stated another way, unfair seasons are not meant to break a man. They are meant to build him if he stays on mission. Closing exhortation. God does not measure leadership by ease. He measures it by endurance. He does not form men through comfort, but through obedience under pressure. So if you're a husband walking through something that feels unfair, ask yourself, am I resisting the process or receiving the lesson? Am I comparing or trusting? Am I quitting or staying on mission? Because the man who stays, who endures, who submits, will discover that what once felt unfair was actually preparation. And nothing God uses to form you is ever wasted. Every husband is on a mission, either by design or by default. The Intentional Husband Fellowship is where men learn to live as a man on mission, at home first. Because good intentions don't build strong marriages, intentional leadership does. Join the Intentional Husband Fellowship.